Hi, I'm MJ from Lioness Publications, and today we're going to do a quick session on Pam Bondi. Now, Pam Bondi is the Attorney General for Trump, and he made special pains on who he was going to put forth for this position because it is, in effect, a justice type, definitely dealing with the law. And in his previous administration, he had selected someone that recused himself, which which was definitely not to his liking because it was involving Mueller and the Russian information. So let's take a look here at Pam Bondi, and we're not going to cover everything. We've actually got 4 charts here. So we have the transit chart, we have the progression chart, and we have the solar arc. We won't be covering every single angle that I'm showing here, but we also have a comparison with her chart with the United States chart. So just a few things I want to bring up there, because I think it's important to see where some of her configurations are showing up in the United States chart. And I don't think I've done many of those with a comparison to the United States, so it'll be sort of different for a lot of people, but it's definitely something that I use a lot when I evaluate people for as a candidate for whether it's in a state election or whether it's in the United States election. So let's take a look first at her first, and I'm only doing angles really up to the next pretty much from September up to the end of this year. So I don't want to go too far because I want to make the sessions a little bit shorter. I don't want people, listening to this forever. So the first thing we're going to look at is Saturn here. And Saturn is going to be square, which is a stress angle, to Jupiter, which is right over here. Now, Jupiter, as I mentioned before, is in its natal position, and this is the natal for Pam Bondi in the middle here. The Jupiter becomes a place of opportunities, things you can expand. Saturn, in effect, when it's transiting that, in effect is saying, well, no, you can't have opportunities, we're going to restrict you. So in effect, it is narrowing the focus. If it is an easy angle, such as a trine, then usually, in effect, that helps you focus to get what you want. But Saturn squaring Jupiter in the natal chart is frustrating because it's keeping you from getting what you want. So with this, when we look at Saturn, Saturn can also be ambition. It's moving ahead slowly. You have a path you want to go down. Now, what's happening here is, in effect, it is being restricted. So you're not able to move ahead on the path of opportunity to get what you want. Since this is also happening on Jupiter, it could indicate legal challenges. It also means that Saturn is sort of playing havoc with Jupiter in that it's saying substance over, in effect, the spectacle. So it's really trying to hone in to focus in. Now, could this also relate to actions of restricting when it comes to legal things? Yes, it could relate to that. Now, let's take a look at the next one, which is, and by the way, that's happening on 9/1. And that's when this chart is drawn up on September 1st. Next one we have is Jupiter, which is right here, is going to be trining Neptune, which is a great angle. Okay, it means that Jupiter and Neptune can work well together. It means that Neptune is our idealism. Jupiter comes in to expand that, to, in effect, help us think larger and bigger. Now, in this case, who knows if that's going to be good for the people in the United States, if she's thinking larger or bigger. But for her, that will be good. Now, another thing that's coming in on 10/24, and this is going to be Neptune squaring Jupiter. So that's going to come in over here and do a square. Neptune is currently moving backwards. So at some point, it will also be coming up and doing a square to Mars. But we won't talk about that now because it's still too far ahead. More importantly, Neptune squaring Jupiter is important. It's a square, so that means neither of these planets do well with this configuration. Neptune is fogginess, illusion, lies, deceit on Jupiter, and that's where our opportunities are. This means that there may be something that happens where she, in effect, loses public confidence. Now, she lost it before, and she may be losing it again. And that had to do with Epstein. So it could be that this comes back again, and maybe people are not so willing to let her off. This can also, since Neptune is media, it can also mean that somehow media is being manipulated for her benefit. There's possibly backlash coming with this, in effect, because if the part of Neptune that is the lies, the deceit, keeping things undercover, then that could definitely be, coming out as a backlash against her. Now, that's going to be around 1024 that this happens. As a note, that Jupiter trine Neptune was around September 12th. So it could be she comes out and says, well, I'm going to do something, and people like what she's saying she's going to do. And then what happens in October, she hasn't done it, she's hiding it, she's dishonest about it. So there are quite a few things here that are coming up. Now, on 11/6, and again on 11/16, we have Jupiter that's going to be trining the sun, which is right up here. Now, that's actually an affirmation. Jupiter expands, and what does it expand? Her presence, her identity. So somehow she's going to be taking a spotlight. Could be away from Trump, could be something that she's working on. So that's actually, it's good for her. We'll see how it is for the people of the United States. Now, let's take a look at our next one, which is the progression. And I don't have a date for this because it already happened. And I just want to mention it because it's important. It's something that we're seeing, we've seen already. And that's Mars here, which is what? Aggression, action. Making an inconjunct, which is a break and adjust angle. So it's something we can't control. It just happens. And it's on her Uranus and her Pluto. Uranus is the part of her that wants to rebel, that wants the new, that wants different. Unrestrained. She wants to be unrestrained. Pluto is the part of her that wants either control or to be controlled. So in this case, what do we have? Mars is pushing, acts on both of those. So that's going to tend to bring up her rebellion against things. Maybe even show up as internal sabotage within her department. So that could be going on, people coming up and leaking. It does, since Mars here is pushing and it can't actually push well to get actions done, it becomes obsessive. So in effect, it's almost like you can't open a door. You start trying to open that door even more. So this can be excessive. Can also end up, because of Uranus involved here, doing radical type of policy shifts. Just radical things in general. Now, that's been already happening, and we can sort of see that. We can see that there's action here that really there's a lot of control. It's the cases that are being brought, the things they're fighting for. But we'll need to see where that goes. So now let's take a look at our solar arc. And in this case, we're going to talk about one here. There are other things coming up but I don't want to get too much in the weeds at this point. What we're going to have is Uranus conjuncting Neptune, and that's around November 8th. Now, that's going to be literally right around the time that we had that Neptune square Jupiter in the transit chart. So now we have Uranus conjuncting Neptune here. So there is likely going to be some blowback right around November 8th timeframe. Now, what is this? Well, we've got Uranus, which is a rebellion, the new things coming in, conjuncting on Neptune. This conjunction is difficult to work because they're both different natures. Uranus is new, electrifying. Neptune is foggy, gaseous. So they find it hard to work together unless you're sort of an enlightened person. And in that case, you can get flashes of insight, flashes of how, your philosophy needs to change. So you could get insights with this. But it's likely not going to happen in this case, although it could. So what is this typically going to be? Well, Uranus electrifying. It's going to start to bring up things that have been hidden, which is Neptune. So it could be that deceptions that have been made against the public are being brought up. Could also be a breaking from tradition and showing that. In effect, it's Uranus electrifies and it's more out in the open. So you're bringing things out that were not out in the open. Be a rebranding too. So they're going to try and change how people look at things by saying, well, this is this, it's not that. A big thing here is Neptune tends to be media, also someone's charisma. It could be that we're going to have some distortion of the media or distortion of how she appears to the public. There's also, with this, possibly a shattering of illusions. Now, again, it's because Uranus is hitting Neptune. Neptune can have things below the surface. Uranus is, in effect, getting rid of everything that is sort of clouding our vision. Now, when is that? 11/8. Now, let's take a look at the last chart. And this is the one with the United States in the middle. And what we have on the outer rim is Pam Bondi. And the ones we've been talking about here specifically are the Sun having transits, the Neptune having transits, having the other things, and also her Uranus and Pluto. So all of these have been hit with transits or the solar arc or the progressions. But now, when we put it into this chart, which is the chart of the United States, we see that for Uranus and Pluto, that's where she's going to be rebellious. She wants control. What house is this? It will be the House of Justice. So, in effect, what you would consider Supreme Court, the justice in the land. So that's a little daunting that we're now going to have angles, which is Mars, for her trying to get control of this and to change to be rebellious. So we'll have to see what happens there. We also have Jupiter that's been impacted. What's Jupiter? It's showing up in the 7th house of the United States, which is the house of the public, but it's also the house of allies and unknown enemies. Excuse me, known enemies. Unknown enemies of the 12th house. So known enemies and also allies. And can also be cases. So it's not so much justice. Justice is the 9th, but this could be legal issues. In effect, you're dealing with lawyers, you're dealing with this, and it's out in the public. Now, very importantly, we had Neptune that was being angled, and that's in the 12th house of the United States. 12th house is secret things. Things we're not seeing going on. It definitely is unknown enemies. definitely is institutions. So I look at this and I'm saying, what's going on that we don't see? What is going on? So that's something to remember over the next few months when it comes to Pam Bondi. So there's a lot here that we're not seeing that's being done. And whenever I see her, she's very matter of fact, she says this and this and this. But it's almost like she's reading a script and this is where she's heading and nothing's going to stop her. So this we need to watch. Whoever's showing up in the 12th house could be an enemy, could be just someone that's doing the work behind the scenes. So this could be minor. It could be nothing. But since it's Neptune, which by itself is associated with deception or things that are not clear, it's like, oh. So I hope you enjoyed this reading and have a great day. Bye now.